All organizations need to change. I'm just going to assume that we agree on that. And it's not because these organizations are broken or doing a bad job. It's because the complex world around them is changing so very fast, so that not changing means stagnating or even deteriorating. And in most organizations, at least the larger ones, they are changing, or well, at least they are doing a lot of change work. If you work in a fairly large organization, you probably recognize this. There are change projects around you, there are change initiatives, there might even be a transformation, right? And most of these organizations, they do it fairly linearly or even sequentially, meaning they analyze their problems, they design solutions in nifty PowerPoints, and they plan their change initiatives, and then they execute according to those plans. What they measure in the end is the change activity they have been doing, and perhaps they measure less of the actual outcome of change. We Agilists, we know that that won't work. We want to experiment, we want to learn continuously, and we want to create solutions incrementally in our organizations. We want to find out what really works. And when change fails, it does so because the critical assumptions that were built into our solution is validated way too late. The digital gadget that we invented, it works perfectly, but no one wants to use it. And the process in our beautiful PowerPoint slides, they are in theory great, but it seems it doesn't work in reality. So there's no doubt organization needs to lean more towards experimental change, to learn continuously, to validate those assumptions, and to actually learn what works. But experimental change has a reputation problem. Large organizations tend to reject it. It's seen as ad hoc, it's seen as unstructured, person-dependent. Someone comes in and runs a few experiments, but nothing really sticks. The problem might be that managers don't really know their role. Hey, what am I going to do? I want to use my power. I want to make decisions. I want to steer. I want to measure. So, oh, sorry, it's jumped. Doesn't matter. So when change starts failing, what organizations do is they grasp for more control. Control of time, control of budget, control of KPIs. In your organizations, if you work in a fairly large one, you might hear a lot about portfolios today. Project portfolios, because that's the tool that organizations today grasp for that control. We talk about project portfolios, or we talk about portfolio offices. And the promise is more certainty and more predictability. In complexity theory, specifically the Cynefin framework, we talk about portfolios of safe-to-fail experiments. We want to do many small parallel probes to figure out what works to amplify the positive effects, the wanted effects from change, and to dampen the negative effects of change. Do you see what I see here? It's the same word used in two different paradigms of change. So my suggestion here today is you don't need a completely new steering mechanism for change in your organization. You need to figure out a way to convince your managers that the portfolio that they are creating today works perfectly fine as long as you agree on ways to give it room for continuous learning, for experimentation, and for incremental experimental change. I call that a dynamic portfolio of change, and I'm going to give an example of how it might work. Dynamic portfolios of change are 4 different jobs that your organization need to practice and get good at. 4 skills, or you can call it capabilities. You learn, you practice, and you become good at it. And I'm going to give an example. I'm going to dive into all 4 of them. The first one is set and adapt the direction. You have a steering group or you have a management team. They might meet, for example, once per month. They look at the direction, they assess the capabilities, and they ask themselves, what do we need to be awesome at in this organization in order to move where we're supposed to be headed? What behaviors do we want to see more of? What behaviors do we want to see less of? And they look at leading indicators of whether that's happening or not. It's not about looking at how teams performs. It's about looking at what are they doing differently now compared to previously. The question is ahead. The question at hand is, are we headed in the right direction? If we are, we just keep going. The second job, I call it make change decisions. This is where the transformation team or the portfolio management team sit down and have a look at the portfolio of ongoing bets. The question they are asking themselves is, are we solving all the right problems? A bet, it's an hypothesis of a solution, A, to a problem, B, that will work and create new behaviors if the critical assumption, C, is validated. The problem at hand is always to find C and validate that assumption. This team, they make deliberate choices among endless opportunities. It's not just about starting up new projects and adding more funding to the ones that are not working. They do start new bets, but they also cancel the ones that are not promising yet, and they adapt to the ones that need it. They do this to navigate the uncertainty and by balancing risk with the promise of a potential outcome. Small risks for small outcomes, big risks for big outcomes, and they have a mix. The third job is to experiment, and we do this all the time. For example, the transformation coaches, they meet with ambassadors from the teams every day, and they design, and they run, and they validate small experiments. An experiment is something time-boxed, preferably within 1 or 2 weeks, that can be tried in order to produce new behaviors, for example, in the teams, if that's what the transformation is all about. The question at hand is, how can we learn and make new behaviors emerge, stick into context, and spread between contexts? Each experiment has 1 out of 2 outcomes. There is a nice to have, and that's result in the form of new behaviors. But there's a must-have, and that's learning, because each and every experiment is evaluated at the end to extract for signals and learning. What have we learned from this experiment before it is iterated, if it is iterated? The fourth job is make sense of change, and this is the hard one. This is the one that we need to learn something completely different from what we're normally doing in our organizations. This is where we take the abstract concept of continuous learning, something we all perhaps talk about, and make it into tangible work. For example, the transformation team and some of the ambassadors, they meet once a month in a facilitated, creative, and structured sense-making workshop. The input for the workshop is signals from the experiments, the learnings from the experiments we have done, and other signals from the transformation. And the output is concrete, tangible insights. Not KPIs, not metrics, not statistics, but deep, tangible insights that are actionable to continue with meaningful change. Our organizations tend to have a strong immune system to trying new stuff, to trying new things. When someone suggests doing something new, the knee-jerk reaction is rather to do more of the old stuff. So, if experimental, continuous change is going to survive that immune system, it's going to need some help. And my suggestion is a constructive compromise between the idealistic, perhaps, idea of completely self-organized change in teams, and the more formal reality where managers actually need or want to use their influence to steer and measure transformations. You can call it what you want. I call it dynamic portfolios of change. Thank you.